Mr. Chair, you are on.
Okay. I wasn't aware that I was chairing tonight's meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Director Herndon, we are on the air.
Thank you.
Your mic is, it looks like it's muted.
Yeah, I'm trying.
There we go. I know it was a lot switching over one meeting in person, one meeting from your remote stations here in central office. So
Correct. The meeting of the Committee on Accountability, Finance, and Personnel of the Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Director Carr.
Present.
Director O'Halloran.
Present.
Director Peterson.
Present.
Director Taylor.
Present.
And Chair Herndon.
Present.
We have 5 present.
As the Pledge of Allegiance was recited at the meeting immediately preceding this one, we will move directly to the order of business. We will now have an announcement regarding interpretation for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes. Para las personas que desean escuchar la Junta Escolar en español, por favor de llamar al teléfono 312-626-6799 y marcar el número de código que es 608-130-5362. Una vez más, el teléfono es 312-626-6799 y marcar el número de código 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Thank you. We will now move to our items of business. As stated in the public notice, individuals who wish to speak were required to register in advance. I ask those waiting to speak to please remain on the platform until you're called upon. Although we are on a virtual platform, we will still follow Robert's Rules of Order, which dictate that all comments should be directed to the chair. Also, any questions or requests, including those from board members or the administration, are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. As always, written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Written comments may be submitted to the board via the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53208-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Finally, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting esb.milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Now, let's begin. Madam Secretary, item 1, please.
Item 1 is action on monthly personnel matters, action on classified personnel transactions, action on certificated appointments, action on the leaves of absence, the report on certificated resignations and classified retirements, and the affirmative action report. The administration recommends that the board approve the promotions, appointments, and leaves as listed in the attachments to this item to be effective upon board approval.
Will the administration please present this item?
Good evening, Chair Herndon and members of the committee. Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. We're asking for your approval for the monthly personnel item, as well as the reporting items before you. Adrian Matalini is here with me this evening, and between the two of us, we can answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Seeing no hands, Madam Secretary, do we have any public comment on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no public testimony on this item.
What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item?
You have Director O'Halloran and then Director Peterson in the queue.
Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. I am happy to move this forward, advance administration's recommendation. I just wanted to ask, as part of, I've asked up for like a workforce report. So when we're considering this for like ESSER, it would just be nice to understand whatever vacancies we may still have, given the number of appointments and everything that we're seeing tonight and new hires and everything. It would just be nice to know for our next step. So I recognize that is not on the agenda, but if we can have that for later conversations, that would be really helpful. But I move that we advance the administration's, or we adopt administration's recommendation.
Is there any further discussion? Will the secretary please
You have President Peterson in the queue.
President Peterson.
Thank you. I just had a question for the administration. In attachment number 4, certificated resignations, how does that compare to previous years? The numbers because these are people who resigned in basically mostly in July, August, and September.
Administration.
Chair Herndon, President Peterson, members of the committee, Adrian Maddaleni, Chief of Human Resources. I would say these numbers are slightly higher than this time last year. I think in general, last year, because we were in the middle of COVID, I think there were a lot of people tended to stay put. There wasn't a lot of movement and resignations during that time, a lot of uncertainty. But we've noticed this year around, I think people, as we moved in person, people are moving around a little bit more.
Thank you. Any follow-up?
I'd be curious also if in the future, if we could get a comparison with or a listing of what other districts they went to. I'm not sure that information is collected. I see a number of people going to other districts. I'm just curious if we have that information.
Administration.
Chair Herndon, President Peterson, Adrian Maddaleni, Chief of Human Resources. Well, when we do the exit resignation form and exit survey, we do ask them reasons why they leave, and they can indicate other districts. They don't always on there tell us exactly where they go. That definitely tends to be rare that they tell us where, but we do have information to say if they have left for another district.
Thank you. That's fine.
Thank you. I would like to add that I did request that also in a pre-meeting to have the data summarized. Is there any further discussion? If not, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to the monthly personnel matters. Director Carr?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Peterson?
Aye.
Director Taylor?
Aye.
And Chair Herndon?
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 2, action on recommended administrative appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, the salary increases and decreases, and the limited term employment contracts exceeding 60 days. The recommendation is that the board, 1, authorize the individuals to be promoted, reassigned, or reclassified, receive decreases or increases in salary, and be appointed to the classifications indicated in the attachments to this item as indicated in the attachment. And then 2, approve the LTE contracts exceeding 60 days pursuant to administrative policy 6.23 parent 4 parent B to be effective as indicated in the attachment.
Will administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, we are requesting your approval of the administrative appointments and the LT contracts that are before you. We're happy to respond to any questions that you may have in regards to this item.
Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Carr.
Madam Chair, I'd like to refer this item be forwarded to the full board without recommendation. I requested the information or some information from the administration during last month's regular board meeting, and I just received the items at 3:59. And so to better inform my decision-making, I need more time to review.
Madam Secretary, how would you like to handle that?
Director Carr, is that a motion to advance to the full board?
I'm there. Thank you.
Okay,
Director, she said yes. Okay, great. I got it. I'm sorry, we had a technological delay. I
Oh.
have it down as a motion from Director Carr to forward this item to the full board without recommendation.
thank you. Do we have any public comments on this item, Madam Secretary?
Madam Chair, we have no public testimony on this item.
What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to the motion that we have on the floor? We need a second.
Madam Chair, we do not need a second as we are at committee. Would you like me to?
Oh,
call the
that's
roll?
right. Call the roll, please.
On Director Carr's motion to forward this item to the board without recommendation. Director Carr,
Aye.
Director O'Halloran,
Aye.
Director Peterson,
No.
Director Taylor. I see a thumbs up. Aye? Yes. Okay, so that is an aye. Chair Herndon,
Aye.
that's 4 ayes, 1 no. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 3, action on resolution 2122R-013 by Director Carr regarding hazard pay for school secretaries. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed with this resolution.
Director Carr, as sponsor of this item, do you wish to make comments?
Yes, I just want to say, I understand that the administration submitted an analysis for everyone in the district. I specifically asked for an analysis for the secretaries. And so I didn't, is that information available as it pertains to the attendance during the times covered in the resolution available as it pertains to the secretaries?
Administration.
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, the reason why the administration gave a full number, because we do not have the number. We can take the number of how many secretaries that we have within the district and give that number. But as far as how many secretaries came into schools and how many stayed at home, we don't have those numbers without a survey from each individual principal in the district.
Director Carr.
Completely understandable. I also know that information can be requested. Some of the information I received, which further supports the resolution to receive or support the receipt of hazard pay for the secretaries.
Director Carr, are you asking for a response from administration?
No, I'm just saying the information is available and it can be obtained.
Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions on this item? Director O'Halloran.
Thank you.
Followed by Director Peterson and Director Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. Yeah, so I obviously at $40 million, I think that's a very different conversation, but that is information that was provided almost like in response to a question that wasn't asked. So the resolution called for secretaries during that time period, and I understand that there's questions around who was required to report in person and who wasn't, but I think you can narrow it down to the people who were employed during that time frame as a secretary. Regardless, if you would apply this, you could say, we'll just blanket every secretary during that time period school-based, and the number would be much smaller. So I think that's one of my frustrations with this, and this was something that I had asked for a couple of weeks ago. I asked for a number on this. So this that it's not available tonight is kind of frustrating. And I also want to say we have heard from secretaries who reached out to us in support of this, and some of their frustrations were not actually covered by this resolution. So I spoke with one secretary who said a student had come into her office and thrown everything off her desk that day. And I empathize with that, but that's not what this resolution covers. Someone called me and said, Megan, we're talking about people who received a 59-cent raise after 3 years. That's also not covered by this resolution. So it seems like there is very, like, this conversation kind of careens. And so it's not actually covered by the resolution. So I would like, I am not opposed to this conversation, but I can't advance it with a $40 million price tag. And so I would like to know what the actual number would be. And if administration has an issue with the name hazard pay because it's retroactive, or hazard pay like when we had done it for the other staff, it was during that time period, and this is retroactive. If there's a different name that we can call it, or if we can cap it, just say, okay, we'll do this amount of money. If we can't figure out the exact dollar amount, but this issue seems to be coming back, and it just should be resolved. And if we have to resolve it through the ESSER budget amendments or whatever, I would just like to see a resolution. And I know that that's kind of after saying that this conversation has careened, I recognize that my statements have just careened all over the place, but I would like to know what the actual dollar amount is before we take a vote on this.
Thank you. Administration, do you have a response?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, what you see that's reflected in this particular item is the idea of everyone that came into work. We do not have, as far as school-based, we have two different sets of secretaries. We have secretaries that are at the central administration locations. We have school-based secretaries that are out in schools. And if we have a number of $2.3 million for the school-based secretaries, but in all fairness, we do not know how many of those individuals that were in school on a daily basis because they had the option. Also, when we talk about others that were there, and we're looking at everyone that came in to those buildings to provide work and provide services that did not receive hazard pay as well, that will fall in the same category as the building secretary. There was HCAs, there was a building service helpers, there was a number of individuals that were in the building. And so what we're looking at with this resolution was the idea of all of those individuals that came in contact when we had individuals in the building. And the administration's recommendation was simply that if we're going to do it for one, we do it for all. And that's the reason we gave the overall $40.3 million. But if you want the number teased out of how many secretaries, it's 2.3 million on school-based. But when you say secretaries, that means there's other secretaries in the district as well. How do we distinguish between the different groups?
Thank you. The next person is Director Peterson.
Thank you. I guess one of my question is this, that I'm wondering if we do a survey like the administration said would have to take place, we would then find out the number of secretaries in the schools, that the survey would ask if the secretaries actually were there. I think some secretaries did work from home, and that's then they shouldn't get hazard pay. I mean, and I assume if a secretary requested permission to work at home, they had to do that in writing. So we would have that data. And I think giving secretaries who were there and were on the front lines is a real is something that I would support, but I would like to see to it that it's the people who actually were there. And I think there's ways to do that. It wouldn't be the most immediate, thing, just counting up the secretaries and multiplying, because I guess my question is to the administration: do we have secretaries who requested to work from home? In my understanding of some school situations, there were secretaries who worked from home, or if there were more than one secretary, sometimes they alternated, one at home and one at school. And it seems that that would impact the total amount of money that we're looking at.
Thank you, Director Peterson. I'll move to Director Taylor next, and then back to administration. So Director Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. Mine kind of go along with President Peterson, that there has to be some way that we can figure out who was in the building, who was not. We were in the middle of a pandemic, so I felt like we were keeping tabs on who were going in and out the building, and maybe not necessarily saying administration, but at the principal or admin level at the school, there should be some type of way we can state who was in the building and who was not in the building. And also, I understand admin was giving us a total number, but as I go back and read the resolution, it was very specific in asking for secretaries. So that number is something that we need to have. And I just heard the amount of 2.5, but that was for school-based secretaries. So I guess to the author of the resolution and also to administration, when we say there are other secretaries throughout the district, are we specifically speaking to those secretaries that may be within central services? And if not, if there are more, I guess I would like to know, then where are these other secretaries working at? So I know it's kind of loaded, but.
Thank you. Administration.
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, the secretaries that we're speaking of work throughout the district. There could be here at 52nd and Valete, over on Capitol, 64th and Capitol, the safety building, the facilities building. All of those secretaries worked as well. So they were coming in, either they were at home or work. When you talk about the numbers, the 258 is only school-based. And the reason we gave the larger number, because the administration was recommending that all individuals be compensated that had to come in that pandemic as well. And as far as the numbers, a portion of that time when we first went out, everyone was out and nobody was in the building. So we have record that show that particular piece. And then there was some lag time where we had to come together and come up with a plan so that anyone that would be out, that they had to work through the plan and get it approved, and we would be able to document from that. But even with the approved plan, there was still rotating schedules where the one secretary may be in an office, might have 5 secretaries. One of them may be in and the others may not be. So therefore, what we're trying to do is that we don't have a ready number to say who was in, who was out, no more than what we could go back and research those kinds of things. We know that we have 258 school-based, and we gave the number of 2.3 million off of the 258 school-based. but there's others that are in there when we say secretary.
Chair Herndon, can I do a quick follow-up? Yeah. Okay, with those numbers too, and I guess this would be for the author of the resolution, just the numbers that we have today are not for secretaries, just for everybody as a whole. The 40 million is definitely going to stop me in my tracks. And I think we do need to do more work and get more details and information if we're talking about there may be secretaries that were working at various places, because we don't have an exact number. So I don't know how we can even compensate at this time if we're still missing some of the pieces. That would just be my recommendation. Thank you, Chair Herndon.
Thank you. Director Carr.
Thank you. I have one follow-up to what the superintendent stated. How was the decision made to compensate the others that received hazard pay? Because I understand the argument loud and clear. You compensate or provide hazard pay for one, provide hazard pay for all, yet that's not the case even without this resolution. And so I'm curious to know how the others that receive hazard pay were chosen to be compensated for just that, and who made that decision?
Administration.
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, that is a great question. That decision was made, and I brought that action to the board in order for it to take place. It was food service workers who was in direct line of contact with individuals coming inside of the building. They were in direct contact. Safeties that were in direct contact with individuals that's coming through. The third group was building engineers that was in direct contact and cleaning. There were tons of other individuals all over the district went in, but did not have direct contact with the general public. Anybody that went in, they were in their office. And I have to say for principals did everything that we asked of them into the public, passing out computers, you name it, they did it. Technology, you name it, they did it. Building service helpers, individuals that clean the building. And that's my push for all of those individuals that I know that work their heart out in those same situations. And the reason why I came to the board and asked the board for permission to provide hazardous pay for those three areas, because they were out there when schools were not even open. These individuals stepped up, and also they were putting themselves at the risk of being exposed to the virus every single day, and they did not stop. And I thank them for their service.
Thank you, Superintendent Posley. Director Carr, is there a follow-up?
Yes, so thank you for that information. I've read each and every one of the secretaries' testimonies. I've heard from numerous secretaries, all of which stated that they did the exact same things, if not more, from accepting mail deliveries, engaging with parents who were there picking up things that were left back in the lockers, or those that needed laptops, to passing out the stop, grab, and go or eat distributions. They were all there. And so I stand on the argument that some of the same things that the engineers and others who received the hazard pay the secretaries were doing as well. And that is evident through their testimonies in writing. We have yet to hear from them if there are any on the platform, but I know that to be true.
Thank you. With respect to this item, Madam Secretary, would you recommend moving this to the full board or moving it at a later date?
Madam
to give
Chair,
administration time? Yes.
you do have individuals on the platform registered to speak on this item, and you have received written testimony that has been forwarded to the board. Would you like to go to the speakers?
I see Director O'Halloran's hand up, and then yes, we could go to the speakers after that.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that we heard from the people on the platform. We hadn't heard from the testimony yet.
Okay.
Would you like to go to the speakers, Madam Chair?
Absolutely.
One moment. The Thank you. The first speaker that we have on the platform is, one second. The first speaker that we have on the platform is Rose Kildall. Please state your name, spell your last name, and begin your testimony. Rose Kildall.
Yes.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and begin your testimony.
Rose Velez Kildau, VELEZ-KILDAU.
Thank you.
My name is Rose Velez Kildau, and I'm an 11-month head secretary at Riley Dual Language Montessori School, formerly known as J.W. Riley School. I have been a secretary in MPS for 20 years. First of all, I just want to say I don't understand how you can sit there and say we secretaries were not on the front lines during the COVID pandemic. I remember the Office of Human Resources sending out an email dated April 2nd, stating on April 14th that the employee groups listed below who work 11 months on the 220 payroll calendar and identified staff on the 200-day payroll calendar will be required to be available during normal business hours while working remotely. But it also stated there will be times in which we will be required to report to an MPS building to perform certain essential duties. Your supervisor will reach out to you to schedule this work. It was also stated by our principals that if we were a single secretary in the building, you had to report daily to your building. If there was a multiple secretaries, then we had to alternate the days that we were to be in the building so that there was always a secretary in the building at all times. With that being said, I had to report to the building weekly during the entire pandemic, and especially on April 22nd through the 24th, May 4th through the 6th, and the week of August 24th through the 28th, all to distribute Chromebooks, materials, books, supplies, etc. in an orderly fashion due to the social distancing guidelines we had to put in place. I personally had to put boxes together for the materials in Chromebook with a hand that needed surgery. We had made sure our families didn't come together at once by making appointments with each family every 15 minutes to come at a designated time to get their Chromebooks and materials. And because we were transitioning to Montessori, we had more additional materials for our families to hand out. We went above and beyond in accommodating our families who did not have any transportation or ways to get to the school to pick up their materials and deliver them to their homes. None of these items the families would not have if it wasn't for all these secretaries at the schools who spent their time organizing these distribution days with their principal and making sure families had everything they needed. We also came in contact with delivery drivers, staff that would stop in the building to pick up materials, etc. To sit there and say we aren't in the front lines is ridiculous. Without us, the schools would not be running. Without us, the building would fall apart. Without us, there would be no one to do the task that we do every single day that keeps this district running. We are underappreciated every single day to stop ignoring our phone calls, stop ignoring our email testimonies, and start seeing the hard work that we do and take responsibility and give to us what we deserve. We are only asking.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Sonia Dixon. Please state your name, spell your last name, and begin your testimony.
Sonia, Dixon. I'm a
Thank you.
secretary that works for central office, and I've been at the district for 30 years. I was asked to volunteer to work at the virtual summer school at the upper campus of Golden Meyer. I seen parents that came in the building on a weekly basis to pick up hotspots because they didn't have internet at home. There were teachers leaving the building weekly, either being exposed to COVID or either been having COVID. At one point, I witnessed a teacher actually coming into the office to speak to the principal after she was told to leave the building. And that's pretty much it. So again, I worked for central office, but I was working for 4 weeks, 3 days of those weeks at the summer school virtual academy. And that would be it.
Thank you. The next speaker on the platform is Jasmine Harland. Please state your name, spell your last name, and begin your testimony.
Jasmine Harland, JASMINEHARLAND.
Thank you.
Yes, I was working at North Division as a 10-month secretary. Unfortunately, I had to be there every day. I I didn't have the option of working remote. When I was there, I did hand out Chromebooks as well as helping other students come in with supplies. I also did go to other schools for hotspots for students that was unable to get any hotspots while attending North Division. I also was helping put Lysol on keys for any additional staff members and teachers that was able to come in to get into the classroom. I helped any public people that came in to help do transcripts as well as anything that was asked for. School records, medical records, anything. So yes, I was access to the public. That's it.
Thank you. The next speaker that we have on the platform is Bonnie Brusky. Please state your name, spell your last name, and begin your testimony.
Hi, Chairman of the board and board members. This is Bonnie Brusky, Bonnie. Last name is Brusky.
Thank you.
I wasn't planning on testifying tonight. I am a union organizer working with the MPS secretaries. And the reason I chose to testify is that there was information that I needed to immediately address that had been incorrectly relayed to board members that I think would share. I'll share with you, and it'll clearly affect how you think about this. Number one, at no time did the Secretaries Union request $40 million. I think that has been clarified now. But what I do want to say in place of what I was going to say after that is I've heard board members request the information about secretaries and who's been in the buildings for the last 2 board meetings. So it is interesting that that is still not available. And instead, this amount of money of $40 million is what was given to the board. So I strongly recommend that the board continues to push in support of the hazard pay for secretaries. Also that I did speak directly with Adria Maddalini, Director of HR, under the direction of Megan O'Halloran. That was way back in April, and at that time, it appeared as though that was going to be the process in which this would occur. And that's also at the time that we discussed having something close to what the engineers received. At no point was there an idea of $40 million. So I feel like that is intentionally misleading, and that's disappointing. And that secretaries were in the buildings while other staff were not required to be. You've received pages of testimony that have been sent to governance for you to read exactly what they were doing when the buildings were shut down. Sure, there are some people who had filed the report so that they could work remotely. Director Maddalini and I also talked about that because I asked if there was a way for people to work remotely if they needed to. And she said all they had to do was fill out that form and submit it to that email so that they would have a record of it. This information is directly available, and I strongly recommend this board to vote in favor of the secretaries to show them some respect and love that they need from this district. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that completes the public testimony on this item, and the item is back with the committee. You do have President Peterson in the queue.
Thank you. President Peterson.
I'm sorry.
One thought I had is that if the administration were to do a survey, and they also look at the requests for working at home from secretaries, we might also suggest, in fact, that the secretaries themselves tell us when they were working there, and that could be semi-collaborated by what the principal says, or what they might have requested in terms of working from home. It seems to me that if we held this in committee for the month, it would give the administration time to do that kind of work, at least the survey and looking at the anybody who requested staying at home, and that would give us a much more better ballpark figure of what we're talking about. So I don't know if I need a motion for that to hold it in committee. with that request, maybe I could get that information, that suggestion from the Madam Secretary.
Yes, Director Carr has had her hand up. I'm sorry. And I didn't know if it was
And
from last time.
Director O'Halloran. I was gonna.
Right. Before we went to public testimony, Director Carr had her hand up, and I'm
Okay.
sorry, I missed that because I thought it was from last time. That was my mistake. President Peterson, relative to your question, you want to give the administration time to conduct research on this matter?
Yeah, specifically, they mentioned a possible survey by principals. I know a few principals have left the district, so that would make it difficult. And also look at the number of secretaries who might have asked for and received working at home. They would not be eligible to get hazard pay for those days they worked at home. It would not seem reasonable. So with those, yes, those are the two things that I'm suggesting that the administration do. And if there's other things that they can do to figure it out, that'd be great as well.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
President Peterson, would you like to hear from the administration on that?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Okay, administration.
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, I just want to reiterate again, we appreciate the service of all of our staff during this time of the pandemic and all the work that they've done. The administration, I want to make it perfectly clear, is not against saying secretaries shouldn't have. We're just saying others should be included. And so this would also give us an opportunity to be able to go through and check the forms that we have against the individuals that showed up, as well as working with principals to find out, to verify there as well, to go forward with that piece. And then it also gives us clarity to all secretaries. We just heard a secretary that was here at Central that was out at a school, that worked out at a school. So that's the purpose. That's the reason we said this whole thing around 2.3 million and the 258 school-based. However, I'm speaking for all, and that is, and I will continue to say, we also should look at some other job classes as well. But that will give us the ample time that is needed to do our due diligence on those individuals and with those individuals.
Thank you. Director Carr, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So what I will say, in my short amount of time being in this position, we've already had this discussion multiple times. I don't know if there's see anything wrong with voting on this tonight and doing that homework later. I'm also curious to know how was the previous decisions made as it pertains to this. I understand that I believe the superintendent stated that decision was made in April before I was on the board. So I apologize. I have not followed that. But I'm curious to know how was the decisions made to, how and when were the decisions made to compensate those that did receive hazard pay? And then, I'm sorry, this is loaded. My other question is there anything wrong with, or will it delay anything further to just vote tonight and do that homework or that analysis or evaluation survey later?
Madam Secretary.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, just for clarity, maybe it would be if I could understand what the committee would be asked to vote on tonight.
Madam Secretary, it's my understanding is that Director Carr is asking that we basically vote on this up or down tonight without consideration of the dollar figures.
Clarification, if I can. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair. The numbers were presented in the previous proposal. Does that mean that I should do an amendment to add that specific language in, those were previously submitted. I know the superintendent talked about the different classifications as it pertains to secretaries. Can we just refer back to the previous resolution with the administration's recommendations?
Madam Secretary.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, and Director Carr, I'm trying to understand when you say the previous amendment, what is before you currently is specifically, and let me just read the resolves. Maybe that will help in the question. The resolved portion of the resolutions is that school secretaries receive hazard pay retroactively in the same manner that it was allotted to the other school-based employees who received it. So if this is what Director Carr is saying, asking the committee to take action on, there is no dollar amount attached to this. It's just the action to approve secretaries receiving hazard pay retroactively in the same manner that it was allotted to other school-based employees. So I'm not sure, and I'm sorry, I'm really trying to follow the conversation, but I'm not certain what the other amendment or what the other analysis around dollar amounts were. I'm not certain.
Director Taylor.
You have President Peterson and then Director Taylor. No?
Director Taylor, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just about to ask for clarity too, because I know that the motion does speak the resolution to the secretaries, but the fiscal impact statement attached to that resolution is 40.3 million. So I just want to make sure, in order just for us as the people on the board, admin, but also for those individuals that may be watching, it would get confusing, because if we pass it in the state it's in now, it does have the resolution, but the fiscal impact statement that is attached to it is saying 40 million. So before I can go forward on a vote tonight, I need to know specifically what are we voting for in the amount if it is not the 40.3 million.
Madam Secretary, Director Peterson.
Yeah, I think that I agree with Vice President Taylor. I am uncomfortable with voting for something that I don't know the fiscal impact of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a responsible thing for the board. That doesn't mean I'll return to my suggestion that we hold this in committee and get a fiscal statement next month. I think it's pretty clear the desire of virtually everybody who's spoken that they want the administration to do that. There's been, the administration has stated that they would do that. I also hear them saying that they would present some other fiscal information about other people, other job classifications. I think it would be good for us to hold this in committee and get that information before we take a vote. I'll just say, I hope that the secretary has heard tonight in this conversation a lot of support and respect for the work that they've done, because that's what people have been saying. I don't know is there a motion on the floor? Could I make a substitute motion to hold it in committee and get the fiscal impact for next month? I would like to,
because I feel like some of the questions were directed to me and I didn't get a chance to answer them.
Director Carr, Director Peterson or President Peterson has the floor, and we're just simply trying to make a decision on how to move forward at this point.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we do not have a motion on the floor at this time.
Okay, then if I could make a motion at this time?
Yes.
I move
Mr. Chair, You do have the administration's hand up. Would you like to hear from the administration prior to you making your motion? I'm sorry,
Absolutely.
Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I don't see their hand, so.
Yes. Chair Herndon, members of the committee, the administration shared that if we're talking of the 258 secretaries in the district, school-based secretaries, it is $2.3 million. We talk about all of the secretaries that's in the district, we roughly in the neighborhood of $3 million. And then I still will echo, please don't forget about others that did the same thing as well.
Thank you, administration. Now, Director Peterson.
And of personal privilege.
Director Carr.
Clark. So in, I believe that was June or July, I presented an amendment and it had the breakdown of the cost. My question was, is it possible tonight to do amendment or, to make a motion, and I apologize, Robert's rule is confusing, to make a motion to do an amendment tonight, or is it possible to just pass it and put an analysis or something? I don't know. My questions weren't answered though. I wanted to know if we could do an amendment using the information that was previously submitted with the breakdown, because we do have that information. Is that still confusing? Okay.
Madam Secretary, am I correct on that?
I'm sorry, Director Herndon, I did not hear you.
Oh, I was saying that Director Peterson was in the process of making a motion, and Director Carr wants to make an amendment. Am I correct, Director Carr?
Yes, that was one of my questions earlier.
Right.
So Madam Chair, members of the committee, Director Carr, are you trying to amend Director Peterson's motion? Okay, so we have not heard it yet. So let's hear Director Peterson's motion first, and then hear from Director Carr and then Director Taylor. And that would help us to get to a place where we are in.
Okay, Director Peterson.
I move that we hold this in committee and ask that the administration provide as accurate of information as they can as to what the cost would be. And that includes a survey of principals and a check on people who requested and received permission to work at home, because that we would substitute, we would subtract, that kind of information and those numbers from the total. So we would revisit this at the AFP meeting in October. Yeah.
Thank you. With further discussion, I'm calling Director Carr.
I move that we amend this to include the breakdown of the amount that it will cost the district as previously referenced in a previous budget amendment. And I can share the information.
Okay. Madam Secretary.
Madam Chair, members of the committee. So currently you have a motion before you, and
Yes.
please correct me if this is incorrect. A motion from Director Peterson that moves to hold this item in committee and to direct that the administration do the necessary research and a survey be conducted of principals to determine which secretaries were in person, and a review of exemptions from in-person work.
Correct.
Okay, so it is my understanding that is the motion that is before you. And what,
Yes.
if I'm following the conversation correctly, Director Carr is asking to add an amendment to this motion to include a review of the dollar amount provided in a breakdown from an amendment previously submitted, in which I don't have that amendment in front of me or the dollar amount.
Director Carr, can you
I can
add?
send it. I can share it. What would you prefer?
We can definitely, as you continue the conversation, look for the budget amendment.
Thank you.
You have
Okay.
Director O'Halloran in the queue.
Director Taylor.
And O'Halloran, yes.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Mann. I don't know if this is more of a comment, question, or a point of personal privilege. So President Peterson is asking for that information to be brought back, but the amendment coming from Vice Chair Carr is asking for that same information, but then with a breakdown of staff. I just need to I need to be clear, because I feel like Vice Chair Carr was asking for the money amount to be different and to go forward with it, but now I don't exactly know. So can Vice Chair Carr give me clarity?
Director Carr.
Thank you. Yes, I was basically asking if we can add that information on now and proceed with the vote instead of delaying it even further. Because to the points made earlier, we've already requested this information. We've already been down this road. I would like, if possible, for us to make that amendment, including that breakdown, and then proceed with the vote.
So Chair Herndon, the breakdown of what amount are we talking about? The 2.3 million or the 40.3?
2.3 million. 2.3.
I'm sorry.
She's looking for it.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
members of the committee, that actually sounds like a substitute motion more than an amendment to the current motion. If I'm understanding, because President Peterson's motion is to hold this item in committee until October, and the information would come back in October, which includes a breakdown of the cost and the research on who was in the person and who was not. So that is one motion that is before you. But what if I'm understanding Director Carr's language around the amendment, Director Carr is asking that this item be considered tonight and that the administration provide a breakdown that the motion, as I'm understanding it, would be that the school secretaries receive hazard pay retroactively in the same manner that it was allocated to the other school-based employees who received it, and that the administration bring to the board a breakdown of the 2.3 million indicated as cost associated with this action. No, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, and I'm sorry, I just needed clarity before I took the vote because I was hearing two different things. Didn't mean to further confuse anybody, but I can't vote if I didn't understand myself clearly what we were voting on. So sorry, Madam Chair, again.
Thank you. I share the sentiment exactly. Director Carr, it seems that everyone is having pretty much an issue with the fact that we aren't speaking of a fixed dollar amount here. It's kind of convoluted between the 2.3 and the some million. And as a board and doing our due diligence, we should not vote on anything that's open-ended to that extent. So I don't know where you'd like to move from here. We can go ahead and vote on Director Peterson's motion, but yours now supersedes it. So, Madam Secretary, I would expect that we should vote on Director Carr's motion at this point.
Madam Chair, you are correct. That would the motion, and I just need clarity on what that motion is, right? Before the board is being asked to vote, before the committee is being asked to vote on it, and Director O'Halloran is in the queue.
Director O'Halloran.
Madam Chair,
yes.
Director Carr is in the middle of making a substitute motion. So we should hear what that substitute motion is so that the committee understands what it would be voting on. And then Director O'Halloran would be speaking to
afterwards
that substitute motion.
Okay. Director Carr.
I'm confused now. Amendment, and the amendment. I cannot submit or make a motion to amend the resolution right now.
Madam Chair, members of the
Yes.
committee, yes, you can.
Okay, so my question earlier was, can we take the dollar amount? Because that's what the hangup is. That's why people are not, from my understanding, comfortable with voting on this because of 40 million. So what I'm saying is, can I make an amendment to the proposal right now to include the 2.3 million? And then from there, we do the analysis. We vote tonight. We do the analysis on who qualifies and who doesn't. And then that's who receives the hazard pay. Is that not feasible? Is that not possible? That's what I'm trying to change the dollar amount.
Madam Secretary.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm going to do my best to try to put this together, but please, again, correct me if I'm incorrect. If I'm understanding Director Carr's request, it is to move approval of the resolution and to direct that the administration to move approval of the resolution to implement, to move approval of the resolution with hazard pay being paid to secretaries in the same manner that it was allocated to other school-based staff who received it, not to exceed the $2.3 million estimate, and that the administration do the necessary research and a survey be conducted of principals to determine which secretaries, to determine secretaries' eligibility along with any paperwork submitted. Does that capture? Okay.
Yes,
I'm going to need a
you.
moment to write that down. I'm just going back and forth between the documents, but you please continue your conversation. You have Director O'Halloran in the queue and Director Taylor.
Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. And that was going to be my point. If we know that 2.3 is the ceiling, that's where we're starting from. Okay. And then from there, we would back out anybody who had, any exceptions. They were working from home. I do want to add, when we survey principals, it would be good to also have a process where secretaries can self-report if they were working in the building, in case, as I think President Peterson previously said, maybe some principals have retired since then. Also, there may be some discrepancies that need to be worked through on if a person was required to report and the principal says they weren't, they were working from home. There may be some secretaries who might need to, I don't know if we can build in an appeal process or just some sort of, not just survey principals, but also survey secretaries as well, so they can self-report on that. And Yes, given that refined number, I think this is a much different discussion, which is why I've been trying to get to this number all along. And so then just from my understanding, then that would come from ESSER funding. I mean, normally, this is a kind of a different situation. So then we would just kind of consider this as part of the ESSER discussions and figure out the funding source from that. I'm just thinking through, like, normally for budget discussions, we say, like, take it from this area. So if that would materially change or whatever, like the ESSER discussions, that would be nice to know. But I think 20, changing it from 40 to 2 million is a very different conversation.
Administration, before we vote on this, can you answer Director O'Halloran's question in terms of which fund would this come from?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, it would have to come from the ESSER funds because we do not have it allocated as of now. And also just want to make sure that we make it clear within the motion that when we say 2.3, we're only talking about school-based secretaries only. Thank you.
Thank you. Follow-up, Director O'Halloran.
I was just wondering if that was the intent of the author, was that it would be limited to school-based, or if there would be, if you were intending it to be any secretary. And I would also point out, I know that administration said that the 40 was inclusive of everybody. And I would say that if that was the intent, we can consider everybody at some point as well. Nothing is stopping, I think, this conversation from going forward if that's what administration would desire. But for the author of the resolution, is it just school-based or? Okay.
All secretaries that were required to work and had contact with the public, and we can do the analysis on that. But yes, all secretaries.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, are we ready yet?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I think the last component of the conversation changed the motion.
I'm sorry, Director Taylor, I'm sorry.
I was saying we were good, Madam Chair. We're good.
Oh,
I'm ready to
okay,
vote.
you're
Thank
good?
You so much, yes.
Okay, go ahead, Madam Secretary.
You do have, before I read the motion, you do have the administration with their hand up on this item.
Administration.
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, just make sure that we had the 3 million because the 2.3 million was for the 258 school-based. And we said 300 for 3 million for all. So just make sure the number reflects that.
Madam Secretary, did you record that?
So noted, you do have President Peterson in the queue.
President Peterson.
Yeah, I appreciate the inclusion of all secretaries, but it was also one of the criteria is they were working with the public, directly with the public, I believe. I just want to restate that. So it wouldn't necessarily mean a secretary who is in central office who doesn't meet with the public. It would mean we had one secretary from central office who said she was passing out things at the door. That would qualify. The secretary who, the time that she spent at another school, that would qualify. I'm just trying to be clear that, but we're talking about those who actually interacted with the public. Can I ask the maker of the motion if that's the case?
Secretaries who are required to work and came in contact with the public.
Thank you.
Okay, so as soon as Madam Secretary is ready, we can move forward.
You have Director O'Halloran in the queue.
And I'm sorry to beat a dead horse maybe, but I just want to clarify that it's for that fixed time period, because when we heard about somebody from central office who was covering virtual summer school, that was not the time period that we were talking about. So my understanding of what we're voting on tonight is for a specific time period. So I just want to be clear up front, because I don't want people to hear this and then later on say, well, I thought I was getting something because I was interacting with the public, and just want to be very clear that it was for a fixed time period that we're considering this.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
members of the committee, if I'm reading the motion correctly, it does say in the same manner, which includes the time frame, that it was allocated to the other school-based employees. So that includes time frame and covers Director O'Halloran's comments on making sure that that is included in the motion. It is written.
Director O'Halloran, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I was fine with the way it was written. I just wanted to make sure that people understood, so they didn't feel upon implementation that they were still they were being left out for something. If that, so just wanted to be very clear for the public's purpose.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Secretary, we're ready.
Okay, so here is what I have, and please feel free to correct me if I don't have it correctly. Now, given that it's more than school-based secretaries, the motion reads, secretaries who came in contact with the public. That is the group that we're speaking of. So the motion is that the motion is to approve resolution 2122R-013 by Director Carr regarding hazard pay to secretaries, and that secretaries who came into contact with the public receive hazard pay retroactively in the same manner that it was allocated to the other school-based employees who received it, not to exceed the $3 million estimate, and direct the administration to do the research and survey principles to determine eligibility.
Sounds good to me.
Before the vote, you do have President Peterson in the queue.
Director Peterson.
I believe we also wanted them to look at the documents that indicate whether or not a person applied for home, working from home. And could you add that to the resolution, or not to the motion rather?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, in conducting the research, that would be one area of research that the administration would do, unless you're specifically asking that those pieces be all laid out.
Director Peterson.
Just so it's understood. I mean, it's,
Okay.
So the added language makes the motion read, Madam Chair, the administration to conduct research and survey principles and review requests for working at home to determine eligibility.
Okay.
Working remotely, I'm sorry. Okay, so in reading the motion in its entirety, one last time before the vote, the motion reads, Director Carr moves approval of resolution 2122R-13. And that is, in the resolve portion of that resolution reads that school secretaries receive hazard pay retroactively in the same manner that it was allocated to the other school-based employees. The motion reads that secretaries who came in contact with the public receive hazard pay retroactively in the same manner that it was allocated to the other school-based employees who received it, not to exceed $3 million, the $3 million estimate, and direct the administration to conduct research and survey principals and review requests for remote work plans to determine eligibility. Does that
Director Carr?
capture?
Okay, we have it. So, Madam Secretary, at this point, what is the pleasure? We've got the motion, so then I guess we go to the vote.
On the motion as read into the record, Director Carr,
Aye.
Director O'Halloran,
Aye.
Director Peterson,
Aye.
Director Taylor,
Aye.
and Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 4. Action on a request for an early start date for the Ronald Wilson Reagan College Preparatory High School, grades 9 through 12, Rufus King International High School, grades 9 through 12, and Casimir Pulaski High School, grades 9 through 12 for the 2022-23 school year.
Thank you.
The recommendation is that the board approve the request for the early start for the schools no earlier than August 1st of 2022 and direct the administration to submit a request to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction prior to the January 1st, 2022 deadline for an early start for the 22-23 school year for the schools that's listed in the attachment to this item.
Thank you. Will administration please present this item?
Yes, Chair Herndon and members of the committee, in alignment with state statute, we're requesting that you approve for us to submit a request to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction for early start date for the 2022-23 school year for the following IB high schools: Reagan, King, and Pulaski. The request will cite the post September 1st, 2022 start date conflict with the curricular requirements of the IB program. At this time, I will share with you that I have Dr. Jennifer Smith along with the principals from all 3 of the schools that are online here with us, and we can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director O'Halloran, I don't know who was first here. I'll just start at the top.
Director Peterson first and then Director O'Halloran.
Okay, Director Peterson.
Question, this means we'll have 3 different start dates for the district?
Administration.
Chair Herndon, Director Peterson, members of the committee, Jennifer Smith, Regional Superintendent for the high school region. No, this request to DPI actually predates all of the high schools being on the early start calendar, so they would be on the early start calendar. There would be just 2 calendars continuing.
Any follow-up, Director Peterson?
Okay, so this doesn't change the date of starting school? I mean, does it push it up another week, or am I confused about something?
Administration.
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, we only have the 2 calendars, and our early start schools are on the calendar that has been modified to take care of the 3 IB schools, and they just happen to be on the calendar. So it's still the 2 calendars that we currently have now.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
President Peterson, in the item, it reads that the early start date will not start prior to August 1st. And that leaves opportunity for the administration in the event that the early start calendar has to be moved back or moved up within a couple of days. So that you only still have the early start calendar and the traditional.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. I wanted to move that we adopt administration's recommendation.
Director Taylor.
Madam Chair, I was gonna move approval of it as well too. It's a yearly thing.
Okay. Madam Secretary, let's have any public comment on this item?
You have Director Carr in the queue, and we have no public testimony on this item.
Director
No.
Carr.
I'm sorry, I thought I saw a hand.
I was just gonna move for approval.
Okay. So Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director O'Halloran's motion to move approval of the administration's recommendation to request an early start date for Reagan High School, Rufus King High School, and Casimir Pulaski High School, all grades 9 through 12. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 5, action on resolution 2122R-12 by Director Carr regarding student fees. The recommendation is that the board adopt the resolution as detailed in the second attachment to this item. So, Madam Chair, members of the committee, prior to considering this item, there was a resolution attached, and the second attachment is actually the administration's recommendation with changes to the resolution.
Thank you. Director Carr, do you wish to make comments?
No, I move to approve of the administration's recommendations.
Okay. Do committee members wish to make comments at this time? I see no hands up. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comment on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no public testimony on this item.
We have a motion on the floor. Without further discussion, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Carr's motion to move approval of resolution 2122R-12 as listed in the second attachment to this item, which is the administration's recommendation relative to the resolution. On the motion as read into the record, Director Carr.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Next item, please, Madam Secretary.
The next item is item number 6, a request for approval of job descriptions for the Energy Project Specialist 3 and the Trauma-Informed Coach classified positions. The recommendation is that the board approve the aforementioned job descriptions as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Will administration please present the item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, we are asking for your approval of the job descriptions that are before you. These positions are integral to our work on behalf of our students. Adria Madalini, as well as the content specialist associated with the area associated with this position, is here with us, and we are more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? I see Director O'Halloran, Director Peterson. Anyone else? Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. I want to move that we approve administration's recommendation. I did have a question. If you could just speak to how the positions, if they're new positions, how they're going to be used, or if it's just so that if we get questions later on about how this, how these people will be fitting into the district, that we can speak to that credibly.
Thank you. Administration.
Go ahead, Sean.
Asking if it's a new position, how they'll be used. Sean's going.
Chair Herndon, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Interim Director for Facilities and Maintenance. In regards to the Energy Project Specialist position, It is a new position. It's related to the ESSER 2 funds with carry forward to the ESSER 3, what's being proposed. We're looking to utilize this position to assist with our design and construction area, especially with utility budgets and utility data management, that we're looking to have this individual work with our consultant vendor that we do have with the position and create a framework that we're able to look to do energy conservation and efforts to reduce our reliance on certain utilities through our budget. Along with that, we're going to have this position also work with us assessing gas procurement with our gas procurement agent, and with the current environment with everything with gas purchasing. So this part of this position would be also be assisting with that. And then the other thing that we want this individual to work with is our design and construction area with our mechanical engineer, our sustainability project specialist, and also our electrical engineer to also take a look at projects we're able to, certain like lighting projects that we've been doing throughout the district, some of our sites, look into ways that we're able to conserve energy. And lastly, we want this position also to work with the grant department because there's great opportunities out there or grant related for energy conservation. So this position is going to kind of encompass all those things.
Thank you very much. Is there a follow-up, Director O'Halloran? If not, we'll go to Director Peterson.
I was going to just say thank you, and I was going to ask about the trauma-informed description, but I'm happy to yield the floor. But that sounds very exciting about this new position. Thank you very much for that overview.
Thank you. Director Peterson.
Yes, I also want to just thank the administration for moving forward on this position. I see it as part of our sustainability effort that we've been working on for the last year and hopefully in many years in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Director O'Halloran, did you want to go back to trauma-informed care or you wish to move ahead? Okay.
We can move ahead, sorry.
Okay. Moving right along. Do we have any public comment on this item, Madam Secretary?
We have no request for public testimony on this item.
Okay, then we have a motion on the floor. Please call the roll.
On Director O'Halloran's motion, that moves approval of the administration's recommendation for job descriptions for the Energy Project Specialist 3 and the Trauma-Informed Coach. And the motion is read into the record. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 7, which is action on monthly finance matters. Authorization to make purchases, the report on change orders in excess of $25,000 and their cumulative purchases in excess of $50,000, the report on contracts under $50,000 and their cumulative totals, and the report on monthly grant awards and the acceptance of donations. The recommendation is that the board, 1, authorize the purchases, and 2, accept the donations with the listed in the attachments to this item with the appropriate acknowledgements to be made on behalf of the board.
Thank you. Will administration please present the item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, we are asking for your approval of the monthly finance item. Before opening up for questions, I would like to offer sincere gratitude to all our generous donors who supported our schools and our students this month. To get together, they gave $23,951 in donations. A big thank you to all of our donors for this month. At this time, we're happy to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions on this item? Madam Secretary, I'd like to pass the gavel.
So noted.
Thank you.
Director Carr.
I got it.
Thank you.
Okay. My question is not about the dollars in this case, it's about the detail in the contracts under $50,000 and on page 4 near the bottom, MATC. And my question about that was simply, it just jumped out at me, where the students were going to have access to this wonderful program, training them in electrical services and HVAC. And the requirements were that they achieve grades A through D. Ultimately completing the program, they would earn college credit for it. And what jumped out at me was the fact that the D would classify as earning college credit when they went through the program. And I just wanted to ask administration if we were not setting the bar a little low, because I've seen and spoken to some students over the last several years that, and raising my own kids, the standard had to be above a D. And I just think that most kids, in my experiences, they'll simply say, well, as long as I get a D, I'm passing. I even had a student just this past school year that just fought with the parents for earning anything above a D because the teacher had told them that a D was passing. I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on that. I just thought that we should be setting the bar a little bit higher than a D. Even though legally a D is passing, I get that, but I just think that we should encourage our students to do more.
Superintendent, administration.
Chair Herndon, members of the committee, Jennifer Mims Howell, Chief Academic Officer. You are correct, Chair Herndon. We do encourage our students to get higher than a D, but a D is passing. However, we also encourage students to make sure that they're able to focus on the skills that they're learning and also complete the assignments that are there. During the closure, we did continue to encourage students, but we also know that there were a lot of other things going on in the environment we couldn't control. But we will take that into consideration and continue to encourage our students to get the highest possible grades when it comes to completing the assignments in our MATC courses.
Thank you, but I do think it's an excellent program, and I look forward to hearing the results. I think it's great that we're getting these types of programs into our schools now. Thank you. And with that, I'll take the gavel back.
So noted.
Okay, in responses, Director O'Halloran.
Yeah, I did have a question about the Lutheran Social Services. I'm really excited to hear about that. Do we, and it says, I think, one provider for 4 schools. Do we have any idea of how many students would be receiving services under this contract?
Administration.
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, I have Nicole Kane who will be entertaining that question. Nicole, with the number of students that will be being serviced through Lutheran Services.
Okay. Good evening, Chair Herndon, members of the committee. For Lutheran Social Services, they would be a new vendor with us. And this year, they will be taking on 3 of our schools. And so in terms of total number of students, it could be any of the students that would qualify for services within those schools that will be serviced by Lutheran Social Services. So we don't have a total number at this point in time. We just have the number of schools that they would be servicing.
Is there any follow-up?
Not really. I mean, I think that there's need, and I think people come to us all the time to testify that they would like these services. So I don't think there's any shortage of work. I was just trying to understand what the expectation was. But I, like Director Herndon said, I would love to hear the outcome of this at some future point. I'm hoping that it is a successful relationship, similar to what we're hoping to achieve with the certification for the HVAC. I did have one other question not related to this particular item, but under item number 7. Is that possible for follow-up, Director Herndon?
I'm going to defer to Madam Secretary.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, as long as we are still discussing item number 7, yes.
Yep. So the question was, it would be under attachment number 4, the monthly grant awards. So I see on there that the U.S. Department of Agriculture is giving us $1.648 million to be used to provide students and classroom teachers with free fresh fruit and vegetable snacks. We are anticipating 80 elementary schools will participate in this grant. This I just wanted to hear more about this, understanding if this is if this will continue beyond this month, mainly because we hear a lot of concerns around nutrition. So it would be nice to hear about how this is implemented and how we can see this in the classrooms.
Thank you. Administration.
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, I'm going to, in my response, go back and talk about really briefly before I turn it over to Omar, the number of students that will be served. When we look at the 4 schools, the total population is about 2,000 students between those 4 schools that are identified. At this time now, I'll turn you over to Omar to provide the answer in regards to the nutrition piece.
Chair Herndon, members of the committee, this is Umar Abdullah, Director of School Nutrition Services. I am currently, off the top of my head, I'm not familiar with the U.S. Department of Agriculture grant, but we'll definitely look into it. However, I would like to mention that we have already applied for fresh fruit and vegetables grant, and about 78 of our schools have qualified under that program. And we are going to start the fresh fruit and vegetable program for that.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Director O'Halloran, is there follow-up?
No, thank you for that. I appreciate, and I would love to see, I know with the attachment, it specified that it was elementary schools, but if we can ever grow this into high schools or middle schools as well, I'm sure that would be appreciated. So thank you so much for your work, and thanks.
Thank you. Are there any more comments from the committee? Director Carr.
Thank you. I wanted to know, how are the schools chosen or selected to receive the grant funding laid out in the report, the finance matters?
Administration.
Chair Herndon, members of the committee, Omar Abdullah, Director of School Nutrition Services. Basically, each year we send out a survey to all the schools that are eligible under that program. So we ask the school leaders, if they are interested in applying for that. So, and we support all the application process with the schools that show interest in this program. And based on that application, DPI determines who are eligible and who got accepted, and they will provide us the list of schools that are accepted for that year.
Thank you. Is there follow-up?
No, thank you.
Okay. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comments on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no public testimony on this item.
Okay. What is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director O'Halloran.
Thanks. I move that we approve administration's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? If not, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to action on monthly finance matters, Director Carr.
Aye.
I'm sorry, you had your hand up. Did you have a question? Okay.
I'm sorry.
No. Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson. I see a thumbs up and a nod for an aye. Yes. Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 8, action on the award of professional services contracts. The recommendation is that the board authorize the professional services contracts as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Will administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, we are happy to answer any questions that you may have in regards to the contracts that are before you. Thank you.
Okay. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. And I wanted to thank you for bringing forward a recommendation on communication strategy. I think that is something that we've all talked about at the board level and in discussions with constituents. So I definitely think this is really necessary. I do want to point out that looking at the demographics of our district, we're about 30, well, the city of Milwaukee is about 32% white. Our student body is only about 10% white. So I just want to make sure that any communication strategy that is brought forward is linguistically and culturally relevant. Just looking at the demographics of the selection, just on their page, it looks like it might not have a very diverse staff. And so I just want to make sure that that's a consideration, that we're not just talking to communicating to people in Madison around strategy. We're not just communicating we're making it so that it is accessible to all of our parents and families and students in a way that's culturally and linguistically relevant. So just wanted to put that out there. So thank you for bringing it forward, and just please consider that as we move forward, please.
Thank you. Anyone else? What is the pleasure of this committee if we, I'm sorry, Madam Secretary, do have public comment on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no public testimony on this item.
Okay, then what is the pleasure of the committee with respect to this item? Director Carr.
I'll have to recuse myself due to the appearance of a conflict of resolution. Conflict of interest, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So noted.
We need a motion at this point. Director O'Halloran.
Why not? I'll I move that we adopt administration's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the administration's recommendations relative to the award of professional services contracts, noting that Director Carr has recused herself from consideration of this item. Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor. I see a thumbs up.
Aye.
There. Okay, thank you. And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, 1 recusal. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 9, which is action on the award of exception to bid contracts. The recommendation is that the board authorize the exception to bid contracts as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Will the administration please present this item?
Chair Herndon and members of the committee, we are happy to answer any questions that you may have on the exception to bid contracts that are before you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Carr.
I'll have to recuse myself due to the appearance of a conflict of interest.
Okay. Anyone else? Director O'Halloran.
Move we adopt administration's recommendation.
Okay, Madam Secretary, do we have any public comments at this time?
Madam Chair, we did have one person registered to speak, but no one is on the platform.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? If not, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to the award of exception to bid contracts. Director Carr has notified the committee that she will be recusing herself from consideration of this item. Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, 1 recusal. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 10, which is action on a request to waive Administrative Policy 3.09, Parent 9, Parent E, and approve a contract with the National Vision Administrators, LLC. The recommendation is that the board authorize the waiver as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Will the administration please present this item?
Yes, Chair Herndon and members of the committee, we are asking for your approval of a third contract extension for the National Vision Administrators to provide vision benefits to MPS employees. We're happy to respond to any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. I move approval of this item, please.
Madam Secretary, do we have any public comment on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no requests for public testimony on this item.
Is there further discussion from the committee? Okay, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On Director Taylor's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to a request for a waiver of Administrative Policy 3.09, Parent 9, Parent E, and approve a contract with the National Vision Administrators, LLC. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes. I'm sorry, before we complete this item, Director Taylor, did you have a question? Okay, thank you. That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Okay. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 11, which is action on a request to carry over the FY21 school deficit and surplus amounts. The recommendation is that the FY21 school deficits and surplus amounts be carried over as noted in the attachments to this item to FY22, and that schools with deficits from FY21 pay back the amounts within 3 years.
Thank you. Will administration please present this item?
Yes, Chair Herndon and members of the committee. Each year at this time, it is customary to bring a request before you regarding carryover of school deficits and surplus amounts. At this time, I will ask Lynn Rule to provide an overview of key points related to this item, and afterwards, we'll be happy to respond to any questions that you may have. Lynn.
Thank you, Dr. Posley. Good evening, Chair Herndon, members of the committee. I'm Lynn Rule, Director of Financial Planning and Budget Services. The listing of deficit and surplus amounts that the administration would like to carry forward from 21 to 22 is attached to the item. The number of deficits have decreased since FY18 from 62 deficit schools to FY21 deficits of only 19 schools. The amount has declined in the past year by 69%. There was only one school with over 3% deficit in FY21, as opposed to 5 in FY20. School surplus amounts has also increased and totals $887,266 for FY21. I'm available if you have any other questions on this item.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to say that it's a wonderful achievement for the deficits to go down. Do any committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. And I think it was last year that was with the numbers. If we were talking about deficits, I thought there was something where some schools had either been forgiven or something was done. Is that why the numbers are down? I do remember us talking about deficits before and how we were going to do something with some extra monies.
Thank you. Administration.
Chair Herndon, Director Taylor, members of the committee. Lynn Rule, Director Financial Planning and Budget. No, we did not forgive any deficits last year. However, the deficits did go down last year as well.
Thank you. Director Taylor, follow up.
Yeah, well, right now I'll just leave it, but I know I took notes. It was something about deficits because I asked some questions about some of the ones in my school. At a later date, I'll just send it over to administration, but I do remember us having a conversation in reference to deficits and surpluses and something else that was done in place for that. But thank you, Chair Herndon. I'll follow up with administration.
Okay, appreciate that. Are there any more comments? Well, we have Mr. Chasen here. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair Herndon, Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. What's implied here with the $5,000 limit on the surplus for schools is that if there was an amount that was in excess of $5,000, that was swept up into some central service account. Do we know what the grand total of those total dollars is?
Administration.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get your question, Mr. Chasen.
Sure. So what's implied by the $5,000 limit for the surplus carry forward in schools is that if a school had greater than $5,000, that amount was swept into some sort of central service account. Do we know what the grand total of all of those dollars is across all the schools that did have a surplus in excess of $5,000?
Oh, okay. Administration.
Thank you. Chair Herndon, Matt Chasen, members of the committee. The total amount of surpluses for FY21 was $3.4 million. Of that, $1.6 million would be allowed carryover or carry forward due to board policy or administrative policy, excuse me.
Okay. Any follow-up?
No, thank you.
Okay. Are there any more comments? Okay. Madam Secretary, do we have public comments on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
Okay. What is the pleasure of the committee? We need a Director O'Halloran.
Move we adopt administration's recommendation.
Thank you. If there's not further discussion, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to a request for carryover from FY21 to FY22 on school deficits and surplus. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item number 12, which is action on monthly facilities matters, the FMS awards of professional services contracts, and the recommendation, the reports with the possible action regarding air quality. The recommendation is that the board approve the attached professional services contracts and the air quality reports.
Thank you. Will administration please present this item?
Herndon and members of the committee, we are asking for your approval for the facilities and maintenance contracts that are before you. Sean Kane is with us and can respond to any questions that you may have in regards to this item, and he will also share our monthly air quality report. Sean?
Good evening, Chair Herndon, members of the committee, Sean Kane, Interim Director for Facilities and Maintenance. Since there's no questions on the recommendation letter, I'll proceed with updates. As mentioned in last month's report, FMS shops have been staying ahead with contracted consultants working on engineering data sheets with deferred maintenance items There are 38 sites under contract and scopes to be performed by consultants that were 4 consultants out of 6 that submitted bids. This list of contracts was reported in last month's report. FMS is working with our 4 current integrated project delivery contractors. We like to refer to them as IPT teams to make it short and simple, but they were approved back in July. We've been meeting with them on a minimum as a weekly basis, along with a recently contracted owner's representative went forward to the August board. Meetings have been highly productive and very engaging in efforts to streamline processes and provide the MPS with the biggest bang for our construction dollar. After discussions of workload availability of how IPD teams were ranked in their recently submitted RFPs, FMS is working off the recommendations off the owner's representative. This month's report includes project assignments for each IPD team. We believe the project distribution is equitable amongst all the teams. Currently, all the teams are finalizing an assessment form that will be done for each school site. The assessment includes mechanical items for air quality, current status with water bottle stations, window conditions, and if bug screens are present, the potential for outdoor classrooms, and if sites have shared lockers, and review sites with carpeting and rooms with early childhood programs. I understand that some of these items are outside the realm of air quality, but these are the items that will be on the assessment forms. Next month, I'll present a copy of the draft document of what we're looking for the assessment at each site. That includes my report, and I'm willing to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Do committee members wish to ask questions or make comments? Okay, Madam Secretary, do we have public comments on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no request for public testimony on this item.
What is the pleasure of this committee? Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. I move that we approve administration's recommendation, and I just wanted to thank the facilities team because I think this is something that a lot of our constituents and children within my own home are very excited to hear about these updates to the facilities. So thank you so much for your work on this. And with that, I move we approve administration's recommendation.
Okay, will the secretary please call the roll?
On Director O'Halloran's motion to approve the administration's recommendation relative to the monthly facilities matters. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Taylor.
Aye.
And Chair Herndon.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Chair, next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on tonight's agenda.
Well, there being no further business before the committee at this time, this meeting is adjourned. Everyone have a nice evening.
Have a good night.
Grandpa Lobo on the drum.